The film guy, Microbudgeter.com. In this video, we're going to talk about all of the different bells and whistles that you need to be thinking through when you are actually going to do a video for your client. Now, your client could be a mom and pop business, Uncle Bob's Auto. It could be a wedding. It could be a bar mitzvah. It could be a video for a school, a church, a nonprofit, Uncle Sam. Either way, when you are building out your quotes, you need to know with a fine-tooth comb and ultra precision just exactly how much this whole enchilada is going to cost. Not only is it a great benefit to you to know, but obviously your client, they got to know what they're going to be shelling out. And you ought to be able to do that in the first conversation you have with the client when you qualify them. I talk about that elsewhere here on the YouTube channel and on the site, microbudgeter.com. Let's dive in. First things first, we got to talk about a story. Now, this little story is real simple. Many moons ago, when I first got started doing video production for myself, and I knew that that was coming, that imminent switch from working as a full-time W-2 employee, meaning I worked for somebody else and collected a regular paycheck, when I knew that switch was coming, I talked to my boss's boss because he was a little savvy with doing video hustling. He gave me a kind of an idea of what to do, and he said his famous words, I quote, "Well, if it's a just, quick and dirty video, some of the guys downtown will charge, or they'll pay $750 for it." That was it. That's all I had to work with. But my background has been, and has always been, in math, ever since I was a younger man. Still am a young man. What I learned from math is that everything within however many degrees of precision you want can be calculated. So why should it be any different for our video productions? Why should there be any guesswork? Why do we undersell ourselves when we can, with great accuracy, determine how much time we spend on each and every project? So I got to work, especially in this day and age, with the benefits of things like Excel, Google Sheets. There's no reason why, in my mind, I shouldn't be able to come up with a quick, and not just quick, but satisfying and accurate quote for any work I do for any client. So that's where I got to coming up with this tool. Now, do you need a tool? I highly recommend you come up with something, some kind of system where you can always give a quote quickly, accurately, confidently to your client. Time is money. You ever heard that? Well, it's certainly true with our video production services, and I guarantee you, at least half the guys downtown, the thing about them is that they're going to say, "Well, fill out this form and we'll get back to you in 72 hours. Go ahead, Google video production company in your town right now. I guarantee you're going to find that kind of low or slow turnaround. It shouldn't be that way. It should never be that way. In fact, you should be able to get in touch with your prospective client in that same breath that you have the time to discern if they are a worthy client, meaning they are a qualified client, and you should be able to give them the figures that they want to know. Because if you don't, they're going to keep shopping. And they might keep shopping anyways, but at least you can go ahead and get them the figures and get them a proposal, a written proposal, whether it's a physical copy or a digital copy, as soon as that first conversation is over with. So you need to come up with some kind of system. For me, I came up with a worksheet. I made it available on my website. You're welcome to take it for a spin for 7 days, and if you don't like it, send it packing. But I have such confidence in this that I'm willing to let you do that for a week. I use it. I've had several people go to the site and use it so that they too can quickly and confidently and accurately quote their clients. Several items that you need to be thinking through when you have a prospective video client. First of all, obviously, you need to know who's going to be doing the script. If you don't have that buttoned up from the get-go during pre-production, it's going to come back to bite you. So you have to know this one. Who is owning the script? And then once the script is developed, you're going to sit down, you're going to talk with your client about everything in that script, if this is applicable. Obviously, if you're doing a wedding or a bar mitzvah or quinceañera or many other kinds of different videos where a script isn't relevant, you can just forget this one. So if there's a script, there's going to be speaking parts, in which case you're going to have to discern how many on-screen talents we have. Are they speaking parts? Are they extras? Are they featured extras? The list goes on, but you need to be counting through these things. One of the things I learned a little too late in the game is the SAG Ultra Low Budget rate. Look that up. SAG Low Budget, Ultra Low Budget rate. There might be two different tiers there. Look at both of them. Because these are industry standards, they will help guide you in your pricing decisions when you are going to get local talent from your metro to be in your video. How many of those people are we going to find? That's important because that's more time on your end if you own this. So you need to discern ahead of time what you're going to charge for your client if you're having to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as locations, talent, so on and so forth. Are you going to have photography where you'll be running Facebook ads for these people? Facebook ads? I know, right? Facebook ads. But I highly recommend that as you are learning and growing as a video producer, that one of the things that you continue to do is figure out ways to create unique selling propositions. For me, it's being able to offer Facebook marketing if I'm doing a business video. Obviously, that's not relevant to a mom and pop that's going to do a celebratory video, maybe their son's, 21st birthday, whatever the case may be. If it's relevant, a Facebook ad is an additional service that I can offer and differentiate myself from my competitors. Figure out what your unique selling proposition is. For me, Facebook ads. And then once I've buttoned up all the pre-production, I want to make sure that I absolutely know what we're going to do in the production. Are we going to have a voiceover? Is there going to be visual effects? Do I have to fly out of town to go do this shoot? One of my good friends and a talented filmmaker, well beyond his years, over at Happy Fox Productions. His name is Justin Melson. You can check out his YouTube. I should link that below. He'll get on a plane and go from Las Vegas clear to Melbourne, Florida to do gigs. It happens. You need to account for that airfare, and if so, how are you going to crunch those numbers? Obviously, you can't be just the airline genie and know what an airfare is going to cost you from here to there, but you need to be able to track these numbers. And if there is airfare involved, obviously that's one of the very few exceptions where you might have to tell a client, I can't get you the exact figure yet. Here's our floor pricing. This package will start at, and I'll have to get back to you as soon as I can gather a few more facts. Facts being, what would the airfare cost, and then make sure you have sufficient markup. Now, once you've deduced whether you're going to have a crew or not for this video that you're talking about, you got to factor in their numbers as well. DP, AD, location manager, producer, grip, PA, sound, MUA, makeup artist, director, casting director, other. Now that could be gear, that could be another person that you haven't accounted for. Figure out what their hourly rate, or rather their day rate is, and factor that into your quote. Ditto with the visual effects. It's going to take you a lot longer to do some basic rotoscoping than it is to throw up some text. Is it 3D text? Is it traditional two-dimensional text? Are you going to have to do some masking? Color correcting and color correction, I consider that a part of post-production, and that's a standard. But it needs to be factored into your process. So don't be blithe about that. Same with your upload times when you're done with your edit. If you're using Google Fiber, well, that's significantly different than if you're running on old Comcast. Know what I'm saying? Also, the export time. These big files that we create, especially for our archival copies, they're huge. And so you got to make sure that when you are actually doing these recordings, you are factoring in that, well, it might take some time to actually get these files to your client. I had a situation once in Vegas where I unfortunately did not get the deliverable out in time, and there was a massive power outage in my neighborhood. I had to end up driving to a Starbucks to bum off their Wi-Fi. Don't wait till the last minute because something could come up, but you still need to factor in that time element when it comes to getting the deliverable to your client. That includes the export, that includes the upload. And you also want to make sure that they have sufficient time to do the proofing that they need to do before this baby is ready to roll off the press and be ready for public consumption. When it comes to post-production, you obviously want to make sure that you understand how long the video is, how quickly you have to get it back to them, what is the average size of their audience going to be. Now that's huge because you're going to bring a lot more attention to detail into a video that's going to reach thousands and thousands of people versus an internal video where maybe 10, 20, 30 stakeholders are the ones that really consume it. I'm not saying you shouldn't let your foot off the pedal. Don't do that. I'm not saying you should let your foot off the pedal. I'm saying that you need to understand you're going to level up and bring a bigger crew and a greater level of attention to detail because of how much more scrutiny there will be if this video is going to be consumed by a larger pool of people. Savvy? So that should be something that you reflect in your pricing, because you're going to be bringing in extra firepower to bring the vision home. What kind of organization? Now, I've talked about this elsewhere. If this is a for-profit business, Charge them the full package. If it's a nonprofit or a church or a school, if it's a mom and pop, you might want to consider offering them a discount. Do they need physical media, such as a DVD? Thanks, Redbox! Redbox has kept DVDs going long past their shelf life. And like the fax machine, they're eventually going to go out of style. But for here now, they're still here, and some people like DVDs. At the very least, you consider giving them a thumb drive. Now, a thumb drive is something that you can actually have your custom logo on. Figure out a way to do that uses fair labor practices. I highly encourage you to do that. It's a nice bonus to give them in addition to a standard digital delivery. Case in point, there was a wedding photographer in Kauai, Hawaii, who, for our 5th anniversary, got all of the photos to us digitally, but then as a bonus, we didn't even know it was a part of the package. He just did it as a great example of going above and beyond and giving more value than what we paid for. He gave us a thumb drive with everything on it, and he was smart about it. He had his logo on that thumb drive, and it sits in our drawer to this day. That dude has learned the way to brand himself while providing immense amounts of value. You should be doing the same with your video projects. Now, with a thumb drive, obviously, there might be a data cap there, so heads up. But sometimes you're going to be able to do that. Might as well go the extra mile. Well, they need a Blu-ray? Does anybody use Blu-rays anymore? Are you going to have music involved? Do you use Artlist? Well, if so, if you use Artlist or Soundstripe or any of these other subscription services, then the reality is you're going to be doing something that has an overhead cost. And that's not something that you charge or bill to your client per project. But if you use something like the other subscription services, like the Music Bed, I'm really not sure if they use the or they don't use the, kind of like Facebook circa 2004, 2005. If you use a a la carte approach, you need to factor that in to your costs, obviously. And there are so many other factors that you're going to need to include when you give your client an invoice, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your time. You know what it takes to create a project. You know how long it takes to get them the final deliverable. And you want to give them a clear and exact estimate of that process. And that's why I came up with this spreadsheet, because this is a lot of detail and a lot of information, and I can't all do it by myself. Can you do flat rates? Yeah, you can, but then you're going to run into scenarios where you end up eating into your margins because you didn't plan ahead and you didn't map out everything. And that's exactly what a spreadsheet will allow you to do, to map out all the different costs that are going to go into it. Now, do you need to itemize every single thing that I just talked about for your client? Of course not. You're going to send them running for the hills. They'll be scared. You need to do a couple of big items, though, obviously, that indicate the value you bring to them so that they know where their money's going. DVDs, voiceover costs, visual effects, editing, cloud storage, gear costs, travel costs, video shoot, video prep, location scouting, scripting. See, these are some of the big ones you need to make sure that your client understands are going into their invoice. So at the end of the day, when they see that sticker, then they understand, well, here's where that money is going. Here is what value I am bringing to that client, and so on and so forth. Then it's up to you to actually execute on that quote. You need to be learning your sales daily. I highly recommend someone like Grant Cardone or Zig Ziglar. Learn from them. Go 20 miles deep with their material. Learn how to close sales. Learn how to pitch an idea to a prospect. These kinds of skills will complement what you do when it comes time to explaining what it is you do and the value you bring to a client. A quote isn't sufficient. You need to also level up your sales game. You know what I'm saying? All right, I wish you the best of success as you continue to use these tools that God has given you to bring light in the darkness, and I hope you will partner with the King of Kings in using these tools to bring light in the darkness, because it is an increasingly dark world where film and video are used for some horrible exploitative purposes. And if you are in any way, shape, or form involved with that, get help, seek out a Celebrate Recovery, surround yourself with some accountability partners, and flee from that stuff. We just don't have time for it. All right, bonus time. We're going to talk about the W-9. What the deuce? What is a W-9? Well, the W-9 is something that is optional. It's an IRS form, and the IRS W-9 is a way to keep track of your subcontractors. Now, we mentioned crew earlier. There may be a time and a place where you have crew and you're able to legally and ethically get them involved as a 1099 subcontractor. Here's a classic example. If your wrists are shot or you just don't have the time, you hire an editor to do the editing for you, or some portion of the editing. Well, you're not going to tell him what equipment to use, when to work on it. you're not going to tell them how to work on it. You're just going to say, I need this done and get it to me by... You're hiring a vendor, a subcontractor. Well, if you pay them more than $600 in a given tax year, then you're going to need to get key information from them. The W-9 is optional, but it is a way to collect that information from them because you will have to report that on the 1099 miscellaneous income, both for your sake and their sake when it comes time to tax time. You'll need their name, their address, and their social security number. Now, if they're not comfortable sharing that with you, well, this is something you have to disclose ahead of time. Hey, Bob, it looks like if we do this gig together, I'm going to be giving you more than $600. Per IRS legislation, rules, however you want to phrase it, I have to collect this information from you because I'm going to report this income as I am legally and lawfully required to do so. And I highly encourage you to do the same so that you are square with Uncle Sam. This is a form that you can give them. This 1099 this W-9 is a way to collect that information so that the 1099 can be faithful in its reporting to Uncle Sam. Now, I actually meant to do this as a screen share, so here it goes. Long overdue. The 1099 that you will submit via something like QuickBooks, or if you're old-fashioned, by paper, will just have their name and the amount that they earned, their address, and their social security number. And those are really the only big ones there. For all of my micro-budget filmmakers, you're probably going to be a sole proprietor or a single member LLC. Perhaps you are an LLC with actual employees. If you are, congratulations. God bless you. I pray that he gives you the wisdom that you need to lead his people and lead them well. There's a shortage of good quality leaders, certainly in the video world. This W-9 is a free form. Print it out, hand it to your subcontractor, ask them to hand it back to you when they're done, and that way you can safeguard their information and get it to Uncle Sam when you communicate how much you spent on that subcontractor. Savvy? The W-9. All right, catch you on next week's video.